Welcome to episode 187 of Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers. I'm your host, Angela Watson, and I'm here to speak life, encouragement, and truth into the minds and hearts of educators and get you energized for the week ahead. Today, I'm talking with first grade teacher Heidi Rose about simple ways that you can move closer toward a zero-waste classroom. Visit truthforteachers.com to get the transcript or find our new Truth for Teachers podcast community on Facebook. This episode is brought to you in part by Student Treasures Publishing, which makes it super easy to publish a book with your class for free. You select the layout and fill the book with your students' writing and illustrations, and then receive a free deluxe hardcover copy of the book for your classroom, with options for parents to order their own copies too. And Truth for Teachers listeners get a $15 Amazon gift card when they publish their class book by May 15th, 2020. To turn your class's work into a professionally bound book, order your free class book publishing kit at studenttreasures.com/truth. I also want to give a big shout out to our sponsor, Power School. Teachers go above and beyond for students, but teachers need help too, especially as they're asked to do more every day. Power School, now with Schoology, is bringing together SIS, LMS, and assessment to give teachers simple solutions to everyday problems. They're committed to hearing and sharing teachers' stories of how technology can help solve problems in the classroom. So if you've ever wished for a quiz that could grade itself, or needed to quickly check which student has the crayfish allergy, tell us how technology can give you more time for what matters at powerschool.com/time for teachers. By sharing, you'll have a chance to be featured here or on their website. My guest today is Heidi Rose. She is a first grade teacher and sustainability educator in Denver, Colorado. I discovered Heidi via her Instagram, which is Zero Waste Classroom. And I really admire the way that she works in a relatable and uplifting way to model the shift toward a sustainable relationship to our planet's resources. I will give a little bit of a disclaimer that this is more of an elementary-focused episode, but frankly, I think we have a bigger problem with waste and plastic, lamination, and just stuff in general at the elementary level than at the secondary level, where I think it's a little more common to find paperless and nearly paperless classrooms. I encourage teachers at all grade levels to get in our Truth for Teachers podcast discussion community and share ideas and suggest resources around this topic. I have a post set up there so you can view all the comments in one place and collaborate easily. Okay, let's listen in on my convo with Heidi. So Heidi, you share on your website that the term zero waste can seem daunting. And the truth is that there's really no such thing as zero waste. And the term only exists to remind us that we're working toward a circular system, not that we should be beating ourselves up about every time trash enters our lives, as it inevitably does. And I really like that quote. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about what it looks like to have a healthy and realistic mindset that educators can sort of work toward when it comes to waste.
Yeah, first of all, I'm so glad that you used the word mindset because that is really the most important word as we are engaging in this work. There's really no such thing as zero waste in this world that we live in. For a lot of history, colonialism and capitalism have been driving us towards this point where we just live in a linear economy. And the model that we have for almost everything in the world is take, make, use, dispose. And it's really, really challenging to work to counter that while you're undeniably part of it. That's full of a lot of tension. So that's really our end goal, is to have a different relationship to the world than we do, even though we're never, ever going to be perfect consumers. That's an impossible standard. So it can really help to just look at the small places where you feel like you do have power and you do have the capability to take action. And also just going into those small steps, knowing that that doesn't look the same for anyone. It looks much different for some people, depending on their level of access and privilege and free time. That's a super important thing to keep in your mind so that you don't, like you said, feel like quitting because you can't do it perfectly.
Yes. And also, it gives you the perspective that I can't expect other people to do everything that I do. I don't even live by my beliefs 100% every single time when it comes to, just sort of being aware of my impact on the environment. So it's really easy to master one area and feel like, okay, I'm doing this one thing really well, and then sort of look down on people who aren't or become really preachy about it. And I feel like remembering that this is a really sort of personal journey and a personal decision kind of gives me the empathy to allow people to work toward this at their own pace and for it to look differently for each person.
What I've noticed within myself is that where I have a lot of judgment for other people come up, it's usually reflective of me judging myself for something else. So
Mm.
it's kind of a self defense mechanism. I think our minds naturally kind of try to defend themselves by saying, like, look what I'm doing. I'm so much better than that. At least I'm not doing that.
I find that to be true for myself too. The good news, of course, is that there are some simple shifts that we can make that are really impactful. So I want to give you the opportunity to share some practical and actionable steps that teachers can take in their classroom today to start reducing waste.
There are so many just really quick, easy things that don't add to your workload really almost at all. Um, that can really, really help shift your mindset and your kids' mindset. So, um, the first step I think in doing this in your classroom is to do a waste audit. So, if you can separate your food waste from everything else, I mean, ideally, you could start a compost. um, but even if you can separate like two trash cans in your classroom, you can start to take a look at what kind of trash is coming out of your classroom. Um, and that gives you a really easy starting place to notice, like, wow, I'm putting in 15 antibacterial wipes after we clean our tables, every other day or every Friday or whatever. And a super easy sweet switch from that is to just get a giant pack of washcloths. So I put that on my supply list. So I was lucky enough to have parents buy it, but you could get a pretty cheap pack of washcloths and then just use all-purpose spray and washcloths to clean the tables, and then those just go in a dirty laundry basket and they're washed and reused. And the ones in my classroom are now being reused on their third year, I think, third year or fourth year, and they show zero signs of wear. Um,
So do you wash those? Do you take them home and wash them?
I do, yeah. I just for a while I had a parent volunteer do it, and
That's what I was thinking about. I had a feeling there's probably someone who might be interested.
yeah. I just like sent out an email whenever my little laundry basket got full, which was only like once a month because I had everyone. I on my supply list I put a 2-pack or a 3-pack of washcloths, and I got so many washcloths that I just like toss them in the dirty laundry basket, and it fills up like once a month. And I had a parent volunteer take that home and wash it for a long time. I'm not actually even sure why I stopped. It was really easy. Um, Now I also am washing our cloth tissues, which is another easy switch you can make. So I'm kind of combining them, so um, I don't ask a parent anymore, but it's really easy to do that. Um,
Wait, cloth tissues? Like instead of okay, I didn't even know there was such a thing, much less that that was something you could do in a classroom with kids. Okay, how does that work?
Yeah. So I went to Goodwill and I got a really big queen size flannel sheet, and I just used pinking shears, the little zigzag like cutting shears,
Mhm.
to cut that up into like 4x4 squares. And then I put all those squares in a bin that says clean, and it stands on top of our desk, like where my paper tissue box would normally stand. And so my kids take 4x4 square of flannel and they blow their nose. Um, they're really absorbent. And then they just toss it underneath the desk in a dirty laundry basket. I like to wash those because I want to make sure that they're washed hot and dried hot, and with usually I do a tiny bit of bleach in there. I'm doing like a load of whites or rags or something. And so because those are like germy, I don't want to send them home and not know how they're being washed. So
Mhm.
now I combine the washcloths and cloth tissues. But if you're just doing the cloth cleaning rags, that would be a super easy thing to farm out to a parent of course, depending on your parent population.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, another really quick thing that I started doing that really cuts down on, I think, the not necessarily the waste, but the impact of our classroom is I started collecting copies that I mess up or like extra prints that I make too many of um, when they're one sided. And then I just have a shelf where I store all of those. And then when I have a one sided copy, I just put that in the copier, like in my copier, it's the blank side goes up, and then I copy the whatever sheet that I need onto that side, and I tell my kids ignore the other side. I just learned from someone on Instagram, they call it goose paper, like GOOS, which means good on one side. Um,
Mm.
and my kids love that every time they get a worksheet or whatever that's has something random on the back. They're like, "Yeah, it's goose paper. Look, we're using goose paper on the other side."
I love that because there's always extra copies. Like anytime I make copies of anything, there's one that like didn't come out right, or I don't know. There's just it seems like there's always, just extras of things, just random pieces of paper, and how great to be able to reuse them in that way.
Totally. And if your printer room is anything like the printer room at my school, there are probably just like multiple copies strewn about from other teachers. So I just put a little sign in there taped to the printer that says, like, if you have extra copies, put them in this little basket that I have on the shelf. And then I get copies from other teachers too, or like printer mistakes or whatever. Um, and I don't think I've had to use new paper for a one-sided copy in years because there's just so much extra paper. So that's, I would say, cutting my paper use in half at least.
Wow, that is so cool. Okay, this is good. Keep going. Give us more ideas.
Yeah. Another area where I noticed there was trash in my trash can when I did a waste audit was all of the little trimmings from laminating or old resources that I don't want to use anymore because I made them my first year teaching, and now I'm in my ninth year. And as I'm cleaning out filing cabinets and stuff, I'm looking at those resources that I laminated, and I'm thinking I have something so much better now. I've updated this, um, and there's nothing to be done with that paper besides throw it away. So I started to think about how I could make paper durable and easy for kids to handle without laminating it. And I started to collect cereal boxes from students' families. So I just have kind of an ongoing, like when you have an empty cereal box, send it in. Um, and then if you glue paper to cereal boxes and cut out whatever it is, it's really pretty durable. I use wet glue, I should say, not glue sticks. That's another area where it's an easy switch if you can edit your supply list. So if you have, just your Elmer's glue in a bottle, in the little bottles, or you can actually buy like a big gallon jug of it and refill the little bottles, or make glue sponges. That is going to last so much longer than glue sticks.
Right, the glue sticks dry out, they get used up. Yes. Okay, so you're saying that the glue bottles just last so much longer, and therefore you're producing less waste.
Yes. So there's way more glue to plastic ratio in a glue bottle than in a glue stick. I was always so frustrated by, I felt like I could glue two things with a glue stick and then it would be thrown away. Those little kinds of plastic are not recyclable. Um, and I always found that glue sticks, like whatever I've glued falls off in like 2 to 3 days. It just doesn't seem to be very durable glue. So that's why I said, if you're going to glue stuff onto cardboard, I would use wet glue. Um, and, the edges might get a little bit wrinkly, but not a big deal. I started doing this in 2017, and I pulled out a math game for this unit that I'm in, and we're using it in my classroom today. And I teach first grade, by the way, so stuff still goes in their mouths. They're still pretty rough on stuff. It's not like they're, nice and delicate with it. So, there's a little bit more wear and tear on that, but it means that I'm not laminating things and then putting them in the trash 1 to 2 years later. which is basically saying, I need this resource to last not just this year or next year while I'm a teacher, but when you're laminating something, you're saying, I'm comfortable with this being on Earth literally forever because it's never going to break down or go away. And that's, I think, more durable than we need our resources to be. And I also just stopped laminating a lot of stuff. I realized I was laminating things that I was hanging on my walls, and why? It made them shiny and a glare, and then it made it less accessible for the kids in my room to use as a resource. So um, I you may find that there are a couple things you still need to laminate, but I think when we start to look kind of critically at that, we can cut down on a lot of plastic use if we're just kind of not if we're not laminating things just out of habit. And then some of the bigger switches that I made were on my school supply list itself. So I'm lucky enough to have kind of a lot of autonomy over my supply list, and this is another area where, like, your method may not look the same as mine, because I know a lot of people don't have they're set in teams or school wide or whatever. So um, I'm saying all of this with the caveat, like, if you can't change your school supply list, there's still a lot of things that you can do. Um, but I stopped asking for supplies, and I just said, write our school a check for $20, which is probably less than parents spend on a whole list of supplies anyway. And then using that pot of money, I purchased like um, folders and notebooks and whatever else I need that year. And I discovered that I don't need, every kid doesn't need a new set of crayons every single year. Every kid does not need to bring in a new set of scissors. We don't even need like colored pencils and markers every single year. That's some of the debris that's just getting tossed out over and over and over again. And so I just keep a lot of the same community supplies going, and then use the kind of pot of money to buy the little things that I do need and distribute them to the class. And that worked really, really well for me. So that's how I got, like a gallon of wet glue to last the entire year. This like brand of folders that's unlaminated, and they're just like brown paper, so they'll be recyclable at the end of the year, unlike those kind of colored plasticky folders that aren't. And I just kind of went through my supply list and tried to find all of the changes that I could make. So um, yeah, I think those are kind of the main areas. Oh, I skipped one. This was a huge one for me. I got a reusable set of dishes for all our classroom parties. So I just from IKEA got like the cheapest little kidsware plates and forks and spoons and cups. And now every time we have a party, I let the parents know, don't bring in any utensils or plates or anything. We have all of that, and I mean, at this point, those are 3 years old, and they've saved hundreds of disposables from going straight into the trash. And all of the resources on the other side, on the side of their creation, it saved, all of the paper from the trees for the paper plates, or the, lessening demand for the oil for plastic utensils and that kind of thing. So that was a major one for my classroom.
How does that work after the party in terms of the dirty dishes?
Oh, yeah, I'm so glad you asked. So that is one area where I usually ask for a parent volunteer. Um, if there's time after a party, I love to have the kids wash them. Um,
That's what I was thinking. I wasn't sure if first grade could do it, but I taught second and third, and they definitely could.
yeah. Oh, first grade can. It
Okay.
sometimes takes a little coaching.
Yes, you're
There
going to
were
have to teach them how to do this. You're going to have to model this and make it a whole procedure, right, and
for
oversee it.
sure. Yeah, and there were definitely kids who I discovered had never washed a dish in their life, which I think is just a really beautiful opportunity outside of the environmental impact. It's such a good life skill moment. So if we have a party during the day, my kids wash it in the sink, and then they just put it next to the sink in a little drying rack. If there's a party at the very end of the day, then I ask for a parent volunteer with a dishwasher to take them home. now I have a dishwasher, but I did not until a couple months ago. So I never wanted to take 30 things home and wash them by hand. Um, but that I love to have the kids wash them if possible, and they love it too. I don't
Hmm.
know what it is about like warm soapy water, but they were all very very into it whenever that opportunity comes up.
That's so good. I love talking about the benefits of on for kids of moving toward a zero waste classroom because you're really modeling for them the importance of being conscious about the amount of trash that we're generating. How do you generate buy-in among your students? What kind of benefits do these approaches have for kids, and how do you get them excited about it and really internalizing the mindset?
Mm, yes, this is probably the most exciting question. Kids are naturally so engaged with this topic, especially kind of depending on the age of your kids. But from a really young age, I think kids are super focused on justice. They notice what's fair, what's unfair, and it is very obvious to them that you know all of the plastic pollution, which is a common thing that they know about, or like trees being cut down, deforestation is another thing. Usually they have some background knowledge about. All of those things strike them as being really unfair. And so most of the time, as soon as I kind of start leading us into this topic, they are already on fire about it. Um, so it's really easy to capitalize on that, kids see the world very idealistically, and it's a really great starting point for them to come into this work. Um, so what I do to start out my year is I start out with a project based learning unit, kind of with the driving question like, why does our classroom look a little bit different than you might be used to? Why are we trying to have a zero waste classroom? And then for like 3 to 4 weeks, we kind of explore different topics about um, plastic pollution, resource extraction, like, pencils are coming from trees. How are we going to treat our pencil? Um, uh, what kind of snacks can we bring in that aren't in, a new Ziploc bag every day, maybe? So we start with a place that's really close to their lives, and then kind of do some research around that. So the next thing that I'm always thinking about when I'm engaging kids with this is that modeling is by far our most powerful teaching tool. So when we're sharing a new mindset and a relationship to the world with our kids, this builds into my classroom routine in tiny little ways where I'm saying, "Oh, I notice I have it written on the back of this anchor chart. I'm going to flip it over so that I can say thank you to the tree that became this anchor chart by using it all the way up." I just kind of, toss in little narration like that. And that I think is far more important than any of the tips that I just talked about, or than the amount of trash that's coming out of my classroom and heading to the landfill, or the carbon footprint of whatever is going on in my classroom. The relationship that I'm modeling, I think, is what's going to have the biggest impact, and that's what's going to stick with the kids too, more than like one one little tip or trick that you teach them for saving a resource.
I'm wondering if you can close us out with a takeaway truth, something that you wish every teacher understood about moving toward a zero waste classroom.
I think what I want people to remember is that you, as an individual, are so much more powerful and capable than you know or probably think. Zero waste is not an ideal. Perfection is not the end goal. So, no one is ever going to be putting zero trash in their trash can, probably in our lifetime. But a different relationship to the world around us is the goal. And you can work towards that goal with even small, tiny, really manageable steps. and you can share a different way of being with the kids in your life, which is, I think, the most potent kind of activism that we can possibly engage in.
I hope you'll follow Heidi on Instagram. Search for Zero Waste Classroom. You'll find lots of practical tips and encouragement to help you make your classroom greener. Have a great week. You can do this. And remember, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be worth it.